The Imperial March snowstorm. Here it comes. School districts are canceling to get out of its way. The National Weather Service is telling people to just cancel their plans. We meet some Coloradans who can't cancel work. The Capitol won't close. Democrats refuse to give Republicans another day when nothing gets done. Republicans sued over tricky robot tactics to speed up the legislation, and they won. Hot politics, icy weather. Next. Impending white doom. No, but for real though, this snowstorm, it looks pretty doomy. Denver is among the school districts already announcing closures. Airlines are already canceling flights out at DIA and on the Eastern Plains. This could be a dangerous storm, particularly for young livestock. So let's get right to Becky Ditchfield for a rundown.
50-mile-per-hour winds combined with that 4 to 8 inches of snow is what we're most concerned about from Denver, or at least around the city to the east, where 6 to 12 inches of snow could fall, and 65-mile-per-hour wind gusts will be possible. It's that windy gust with those very heavy snow bands moving through that will provide low visibility even after the snow stops falling past 6 p.m. So we are going to see blizzard conditions not only here in Denver, but to our east as well. Up in our mountains, winter storm warnings and advisories cover the southwest San Juans all the way up through the Continental Divide. Those are in place through Thursday morning. We've got that blizzard warning in effect for Denver extending out into northeast Colorado for your Wednesday. Travel obviously not advised. Wind gusts here in the city could top 50 miles per hour as that storm system rapidly intensifies and pushes across the state down to the southeast, where we're not looking at much snow. We are going to see 75-mile-per-hour gusts. So this is a system for all of Colorado, not just the Denver metro area. Temperatures tonight quite mild, will drop into the 30s, but a couple of thunderstorms are also possible right ahead of that storm system as it moves in. We'll see our highs early in the morning tomorrow, and then temperatures will drop. We're waiting for an icy morning early Thursday with highs in the 30s. Then we warm up for the weekend.
Just wild, Becky. All right, if you can stay home tomorrow, they say you should. That's not me advising that. That's the National Weather Service. And we know that most people don't have the luxury of working from home, although this program from my basement would actually be pretty decent. But a lot of Coloradans are going to be out in tomorrow's blizzard conditions, whether they like it or not, including Luke Schultz, the man on a mission tomorrow.
The day before the storm is pretty hectic. The day before the storm, there's a lot of anticipation. The day before the storm is probably just as busy as the actual storm. The day before the storm is definitely not a day off. I'm Luke Schultz. I'm an operations manager here at Martinson Snow Removal. Basically, we're getting plows on trucks, we're doing truck repairs, we are hauling ice melt on site. I would describe it as a beehive with a lot of bees buzzing around, everybody working. We got guys in the shop fixing things. We have guys running ice melt at the office. They're answering phone calls and taking care of all the business aspect of everything. I would say that all in all, not one employee around here is not working as hard as they can right now. You have to be willing to run on very little rest and be ready to stay out for long periods of time. Definitely a lot of work. The only time I get sick of it is when the fish are biting and it's time to go fishing. It only snows a few times a year, so I can rest the rest of the year when it's not about to snow, but right now there's a lot of work to do.
There are school superintendents just tripping over each other to announce school closures for tomorrow. Denver, Aurora, Dougco, Cherry Creek, and more. They'll be scrolling along the bottom of the screen and posted on 9news.com. More than 500 flights out of DIA tomorrow have already been canceled. Most of those are Southwest flights, but United and Frontier have also preemptively called off dozens apiece. An avalanche in remote Hinsdale County hit a house this morning. Happened in Lake City, where people are being asked to evacuate that town before the next slide. 3 people were hurt in this morning's avalanche. One of them is seriously injured. There are about 700 people who live in Lake City. So remember how Senate Republicans thought that they were being clever at the State House when they asked for a 2,000-page bill to be read out loud? All they wanted to do was slow things down so that Democrats couldn't continue to fast-track legislation. But then Senate Democrats turned to the robots. They had 5 computers read the bill at super speed in hours instead of days. And if you thought that they had finally outsmarted the Republicans, well, you forgot that these lawmakers are often lawyers. The Republicans are suing. It's a new effort to slow down the Democrats who have our state legislature running at ramming speed. Here's politics guy Marshall Zellinger.
I request Senate Bill 181 be read at length.
The state Senate started today.
Section 4 in Colorado Revised Statutes.
Just like yesterday.
4, amend 1.
Having a bill read out loud. Except today it was a person reading. And not 5 computers.
The one thing the Constitution allows and really clearly provides for is the reading of a bill at length.
The computer reading has led to this lawsuit. Republicans were granted a temporary restraining order preventing the 2,000-page bill from moving forward. No one really cares about the 2,000-page bill. It's just the longest one that could slow down things like today's oil and gas debate. And the point of it being read out loud was to force Democrats to talk to Republicans.
What typically happens is an ambassador from the majority will come and ask, can we talk? And I was surprised that no one from the majority came and asked, what? Can we talk?
It's obstruction tactics. That's what they're trying to do. They want to stall. They want to throw a temper tantrum on the Senate floor, and that's their right to do. That doesn't mean we have to, respect it and appreciate it and give them things that we think are irresponsible things to request.
If Republicans can't stop the oil and gas bill, which they can't, they at least want the last paragraph to not be a safety clause, the kind that starts a bill once it's signed. They want a petition clause, the kind where voters can sign a petition to try to stop it from taking effect.
Using the petition clause would not require Majority Leader Fenberg or the majority to change the wording of the bill. They could pass the same bill, but at least give the people of Colorado the opportunity to weigh in through that petition process.
For me, a safety clause is reserved for bills that are generally about health and safety. That's what this is about.
Shocking news. The amendment to change to a petition clause failed just a short time ago. That lawsuit, Kyle, about reading a bill out loud, that's a new tactic. Problem is there won't be a hearing for that until March 19th, so the Republicans can't use that 2,000-page slowdown again until after that at least, and bills like oil and gas probably still won't be waiting by that time.
We've seen a turn, though, in the last week, a turn in terms of the tone where it's anything to stop the fast-tracking of legislation by the Democrats who are in charge.
And it's funny because we talk about this behind-the-scenes stuff that the public may not understand. This is typical stuff that we've seen in years past, but this is a brand new tactic of let's bring in the lawyers and the judges to slow things down. I don't know. Also, Kyle, while I was in the Senate today, I saw Republican Senator Vicki Marble, who, as we've mentioned here, has talked about secession on her Facebook page. The idea of parts of Colorado leaving Colorado.
We have a lot of receptions here at the Capitol, and people from all over the state come and attend. And because of the bills that are being run, they are feeling for their economic viability that their hopes to succeed in life is to secede.
So with the idea of judges, and in this case, secession, Marble tells me this isn't Republicans taking their ball and going home. If this is what the constituents want, she'll help. But she also tells me she's not currently pursuing legislation to start the process.
And it would indeed be a real process. There are a number of layers of approval. That's the reason why this went nowhere in 2013.
But it would at least start. We would need her to start something, and she's not even going to do that.
All right, interesting. Thank you, Marshall. Conflict over Colorado's proposed red flag gun control bill is boiling over today in Douglas County. That is the home to the Republican sheriff who's become the face of that bill, as well as some conservative county commissioners who voted today to join more than a dozen other counties in saying they won't enforce it if it becomes law. Then it gets nasty. The sheriff calls the commissioners incompetent. They suggest that he could have prevented the death of his deputy, the deputy for whom the red flag bill is named. Some pretty strong accusations heard today by our Steve Steger.
We are not declaring ourselves a sanctuary county. We are declaring ourselves a safe, constitutional county.
With semantics stretched.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries.
The 3-member Board of Commissioners of Douglas County voted to make itself one of a growing list of sanctuary counties, vowing not to support enforcement of a bill that hasn't even passed yet.
We will simply only fund laws that are constitutional.
And they'll be the first to admit it's too early to know what it means.
It is not even a passed bill yet.
Right.
So why would we come on anything that is not even an approved bill?
They said that as they passed a resolution about a bill that hasn't passed yet.
I completely disagree with it. I think it was completely premature for them to do this resolution today.
In essence, the board voted against its sheriff, Tony Spurlock, who is the lead advocate for the bill, which would allow the court to order weapons seized if a person is deemed a threat.
That really means nothing. They would be foolish to take money away from the office of sheriff because I enforce the law. Essentially what they're trying to do is extort me.
The sheriff is pushing for the bill after one of his deputies, Zach Parrish, was killed by a troubled man. A case County Commissioner Laura Thomas claims might have been solved by seizure statutes already on the books.
So if this case had been brought to the attention of our county attorney would have worked with the family, gone to the court with due process, and followed the process of the statute that is already on the books.
Those are inexperienced people speaking where they shouldn't be talking. Okay, and you can quote me on that. Not one of those commissioners, one of them wasn't even elected, but the other two were elected, and quite frankly, they're incompetent to make that statement.
As for if the sheriff worries the unanimous vote by his county board might spark a recall effort.
Well, I've been here 39 years, longer than any of those other people sitting on that dais, and I know my citizens, I know my constituents, and they will stand behind me on this.
So Spurlock says that he is curious whether or not the county would defend him. If this does indeed become law, he enforces it and then is sued. He believes that's the legal obligation of the county. So Commissioner Laura Thomas also said today that she's heard from deputies inside the department who say that they are nervous about this law and nervous about enforcing it. I asked her if that puts Sheriff Spurlock's leadership in question to her. She wouldn't give me a firm answer on that, Kyle.
Commissioner Thomas, we should note, ran against Spurlock for sheriff in 2014 and lost. It's interesting, Steve, because between Marshall's story and then your story here, we see the two big dynamics going on in Colorado politics these days. You've got the Democratic majority versus the Republican minority that are at war with each other, and then you have the two halves of the Republican Party, which are going at it just as furiously with one another.
Yes, because you even have the Douglas County Republican Party issuing a resolution of its own, a lot more fiery than this resolution was today, actually condemning Sheriff Spurlock for even approaching this with the legislature. So, yeah, it certainly shows both sides of the party kind of working through things here.
All right, Steve Sager reporting from Douglas County. Thank you, Steve. Update you on the progress of that bill. It's already passed the State House. The Senate will have a hearing on the red flag gun control bill on Friday. This is Sunshine Week, which most clearly is not indicative of the weather. It's about your right to know how our government operates. And just like we try to hold the powerful to account, we appreciate you holding us to account. Like all of you who have written in recently to say, hey, how about an update on that crazy hemp or marijuana bust mystery? You got it. Next. This is Sunshine Week, when we celebrate the fact that government works best when we and you can see how it operates. Today, the Colorado Freedom of Information Coalition released its new guide to the state's open records and open meetings laws. They're the laws that journalists use to determine how our tax dollars are being spent, how public decisions are being made. First Amendment attorney Steve Zansberg makes the most important point of all, though. These laws are not for us, they're for you.
Any person in the state has the right to request and gain access to records that show us how our public servants are performing their public functions. It's really sort of like the basic data of government for us to hold our public officials accountable.
If you're interested in knowing more about access to public records and public meetings in our state, we have a link to that information on the Next Facebook page. A couple of Next viewers got in touch recently wondering what happened to the guys who were arrested in Oklahoma on their way up to Colorado. They were transporting either a ton of hemp or a ton of marijuana, whether you believe those men or the police. Next viewers Daryl and Mary and Paul asked for an update, so here you go. All of the men who are arrested have been released from jail. They have a court hearing April 22nd to face marijuana trafficking charges. We expect our next movement in the case then, April 22nd. Again, prosecutors down there still insisting that what was in that semi-trailer was actually illegal marijuana. You've heard the saying, money can't buy happiness. Well, it would appear that 33 parents, including 2 in Colorado, certainly tried to do that for their children, accused of paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to get their kids into elite colleges. Federal agents confirmed to us today that a mother with a home in Aspen was arrested in connection with this story making national news. Federal records accuse 50 suspects, mostly parents, of fraud and bribery, trying to get their kids into schools including Yale and Stanford and UCLA. They're accused of using fake test scores and fake athletic credentials to do it. Gregory and Marcia Abbott, who have homes in New York and Aspen, are accused of hiring the company to have people correct wrong answers on their daughter's ACT and SAT tests. The other family with a Colorado connection lives in Florida. The indictment says that family falsely stated that their daughter was taking classes at a number of schools, including CU Boulder, so that she could then leverage that into a transfer at the University of Southern California. Out with the old, in with the new, and that's especially true when we're talking about the most Colorado thing we've seen today. Our next question comes from a viewer named Tim. He wants to know, what are the temperatures that are referred to as a deep freeze? Anything below freezing, or does it have to be below zero? Tim, that is out of my area of expertise, but I bet you meteorologist Danielle Grant knows all about it.
Think of the deep freeze as an extremely cold spell. We don't necessarily have to hit a certain temperature or a certain degree. Think of it more as a period of extremely below average temperatures. So last Sunday and Monday, they definitely qualify as looking at the deep freeze. Our overnight temperatures were sub-zero both early Sunday morning and Monday morning, when the average overnight low should be in the lower 20s. And those daytime highs, single digits and teens. Our temperatures were running more than 45 degrees below average. It's when we had that cold Arctic air dive south from Canada when we get these prolonged periods of that deep freeze.
Danielle used the first weekend of March as an example because it was a lot colder then. Tomorrow's expected to be a snowy mess, especially out east, but at least it's not going to be bitter cold, right? The most Colorado thing we've seen today. 2 people clearing the greens right before a blizzard. Julia Vollendorf took this photo at Telluride Ski and Golf today. You got folks out there with a snow blower and a shovel while under a winter storm warning. Have a feeling they're going to be back out at work on Thursday morning. Share the most Colorado thing you see with the hashtag HeyNext or email next@9news.com. School superintendents are under a lot of pressure to call a snow day tomorrow. Kids keep hitting me up on Twitter. They want me to light up Jefferson County schools. I won't do it. I'm not going to light up Jeffco schools just because they're not doing a snow day tomorrow. But how one superintendent had a little fun today. Next. There's a blizzard warning that covers most of eastern Colorado and then bumps back up to the metro area. So most are going to be feeling chilly, but school superintendents, they're feeling the heat. Poudre School District Super Sandra Smizer was feeling poetic about all the pressure, tweeting, "Call it and suffer the slings and arrows if the storm misses us," or to not call it. And by not calling it, make sure we get clobbered with snow.
Easy to be wrong. You know, it's the kind of decision where you can easily come down on the wrong side. So I thought, well, let's have some fun.
While she jokes about the decision, we know that she and all the other school superintendents really agonize over these decisions. We certainly wish them wisdom, maybe some luck, and thick skin no matter what. Hey, speaking of which, let's get to your feedback. Kevin Brushaber writes in tonight to say, is it normal practice to have the bills in the state legislature read aloud? Isn't it the elected officials' job to do that on their own before voting? So, Kevin, some of this is a throwback to the olden days before bills could just be emailed around and posted on the internet and so forth. That's the reason why in recent years you'll hear legislatures decide that they're just going to dismiss with the bill reading and just go ahead and vote on it. But it is a tool for the minority, which is the Republicans this year, to try and gum up the work and slow things down by asking for bills to be read. That court is going to decide whether they can use the robot machine speed reader. See you next time.